Welcome to a 13 News special program. Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve. Now, here's Amanda Barron and Pat Simon.
Hello and welcome to Veterans Voices from the West Virginia State Capitol. I'm Pat Simon.
And I'm Amanda Barron. For the next hour, we'll share with you some heartwarming and patriotic stories about some of our bravest Americans, our veterans.
And we begin with what Veterans Day is all about, honoring those who served our country proudly. For them, it's about duty, honor, and country.
And if you meet a veteran, it's likely you'll run into someone who's suffering from some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder. In fact, the VA says 1 out of every 3 veterans is dealing with that.
And while some medication is working for them, there's an alternative treatment. It's all about unconditional four-legged love. When Kelly Sockett first met her husband, Andrew, it was love at first sight.
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
It was also after Andrew's military deployments, when she eventually noticed something was off.
You know, there were some instances where we were out in public, like in the stores or things like that, and he would be kind of nervous and be like, oh, you know, let's get out of here.
Andrew's PTSD from combat-related traumatic brain injury and exposure to toxic burn pits progressively got worse. His nightmares were scary.
He would shout, or it would be like he was in trouble or something.
My anger and my attitude was starting to change, and instead of people realizing what happened, it was, you've got an attitude problem, something's not right, you're angry at the world.
Andrew was prescribed various medications to help him manage his anxiety. And then he met a fellow veteran who convinced him to toss out the pills and pick up a leash.
Good boy.
Meet Hercules.
Yes, you
The
are.
2-year-old tail-wagging yellow lab.
Good boy.
100 pounds of unconditional love.
Yeah, there we go.
For 10 days, Andrew and Hercules went through individualized, all-expense-paid training with the group America's Vet Dogs in New York.
Stay.
Andrew learned how to work with his support dog, and in return, Hercules gave Andrew a gift of confidence and comfort.
It's been a big blessing and a change of life.
When he's with Andrew, when Andrew's around him, it's just this peace, this calm.
Calm that allows Andrew to give back to his fellow veterans as West Virginia's VFW state chaplain, sharing his love for fellow service members and their families.
Console and comfort those bereaved by the hand of death. Heavenly Father, bless our nation with freedom, peace, and righteousness. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. For me, that's also really amazing to see that I can help encourage other veterans to seek help instead of hiding it and bottling it up.
There's hope for all service people. You know, when I see him dealing with what he has, and he has the dog that's super, it gives me strength. It's exactly what it does. It gives me strength to support my fellow veterans and serving and past serving.
Proof that man's best friend can also help our heroes heal through a special bond.
He's still very much a puppy at heart.
And in this case, it was definitely Hercules to the rescue. Vet Dogs is a nonprofit group. It relies on contributions to continue its efforts to help veterans. For more information, just go to our website, WOWKTV.com.
All right, from vet dogs to archery, check out what they're doing in Abilene, Texas. The Abilene Bowhunters Association gives military combat veterans an opportunity to participate in a fun competition. It not only measures the vets' archery skills, but it also allows them to cope and blow off steam. A fun competition to not only measure their archery skills, and they stress that all of that often goes with protecting our country.
The VA clinic is giving me a different platform to help settle all the noise in my head.
Everything disappears in life. You're just in the moment right then and there. And so for me, the hands-on archery, being able to be out here, that's basically what it is for me.
The veterans say it doesn't matter in what year or era they served. This is all about the connections they can make with each other.
And if a bow and arrow is not your thing, how about taking on a big slab of clay and molding it? There is a program in Vista, California that helps many members of the military transition into the civilian life, which can be as challenging as serving. Here, art is a way to help create that new life. An art therapist interprets their creations and is there for any veteran to open up on what's on their mind. From the canvas of an art studio to the canvas of the great outdoors, one group of veterans is finding peace in all things that nature provides.
And they're able to do it because of an Army veteran who says it's all his way of saying thanks. A certain sense of freedom can be found on the slopes, being high up in the air on the lift and then flying down the mountain. Freedom is something these veterans know quite a bit about. They put their own lives on the line for it. Skiing, on the other hand, though, many of them are still learning.
What are you going to be thinking about when you go down the mountain
Just
today?
having fun today. I want to try to get back to see if I can remember any things that I did when I was over in Germany.
It's going to be fun.
It's brave.
That's
really
what I'm
brave.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's going to be fun because it's going to hurt.
That's where Army veteran Woody Ahrens comes in, and the gathering of the Mountain Eagles. It's his nonprofit, but it's more of a thank you. In the 1980s, his daughter survived a catastrophic bus crash in Kentucky. More than 24 people died. Helping veterans with the wounds we can see and those we can't is his constant show of gratitude.
It allows me some camaraderie with what I know I'm most familiar with. So, it helps me deal with my PTSD with being along with the other veterans and everything, and try to help me overcome some of my deals with PTSD and anything else I come back from the war with.
Freedom.
Tell me about what you mean when you say that. That's awesome.
You get to just feel alive and just go and feel like a regular person. These guys just are amazing.
The one-on-one instruction means each veteran can enjoy the fruits of the freedoms for which they fought at their own pace.
Obviously, veterans, we don't do well in civilian environments, so we get together with a bunch of other veterans. It's like less stress.
Level of trust you don't have with other people.
Bye. Have fun, Rachel. Making sure their minds and bodies keep active.
I've never been sitting around and stuff, but I know a lot of people who were sitting in their homes not doing anything until they got involved with rec therapists, PVA, and organizations that get you out, and especially, gathering in the Mountain Eagles.
Yeah.
All the helpers that work with the Mountain Eagles enable us to do all these sports are the best.
The ski instructors say they have fun, if not more fun, than the people they're helping down the slopes.
Well, I take away bravery from me because I work in trauma, and so I make that connection with the military, as lots of people have dealt with a lot of stuff, and so just seeing how people overcome that trauma and they are just moving forward and being brave, and I feel braver when I leave here.
Braver with a renewed sense of gratitude for those who gave so much.
It gives me a perspective, peace of mind, allows me to reflect on where I came from, where I'm going, what I need to do. Just give me a chance to reset, rewind, and get started again.
Providing strength and removing barriers, prioritizing these patriots' personal freedoms. It's not just skiing. This fall, the veterans had a chance to go zip lining, they went whitewater rafting, and they got to stand on the field at the Mountaineer game. So a lot of amazing experiences.
Fun stuff there. Coming up on Veterans Voices, we knew him as Woody, West Virginia's native son and war hero. The brave Marine was World War II's last Congressional Medal of Honor recipient.
Now there's a new documentary that details Woody Williams' extraordinary life of service. A preview next.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices. We're actually in the studio of WVPB to promote an upcoming documentary about our very own Woody Williams. It's called Woody Williams An extraordinary life of service.
It sure was. And two people have been working tirelessly on this project now for a year and a half to make sure that Woody's life is out there in a way that everyone can enjoy. Janet Kanicki is the executive producer. Randy Yohe wrote this piece and worked on so many different aspects of it. I'm sure it was an honor for both of you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Certainly.
Our pleasure.
Janet, how did you guys get the idea to do this documentary?
It just kind of fell in our laps. When Woody passed away, we both covered it. I got all this footage, gotta do something with it. And Randy had the inside track to knowing the family, and my boss was encouraging me to look outside West Virginia to find the outside voice. And we found it.
Indeed. In fact, let's talk some highlights right now, Randy. It all started with Western Union.
That's right. We just went into World War II after Pearl Harbor, and Woody, who was rejected from the Marines, first of all, because he was too short, took a job as a teenager right there in Fairmont, West Virginia, driving a cab. And one of his duties was to take those Western Union telegrams to families who had lost a loved one in combat.
Let's take a look.
Here's a young man once again. There's no military training. There's no training in bereavement or delivering the worst news that a family could ever receive. That really, I think, planted a seed in him. It had such a weight that he carried with him in his heart, and it changed him.
He was so comforting all of the time, but to imagine a young man delivering that type of news had to be something that it obviously stuck with him.
It would be an epiphany for the rest of his life. It would really form the rest of his life.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Iwo Jima, where we know him as that Medal of Honor recipient, that Marine.
Mm-hmm. Well, he would say he didn't do it alone.
And I love what he said too when they said you're going to go do this, and it wasn't something that he was really thinking that he was going to do. And when they say, "Can you do it?" and he said, "I'll try."
I'll try. Yeah.
And that to me is such a poignant statement about who Woody Williams was.
And it gives you chills. Let's watch.
Yeah.
I have said over time that it was just like fighting ghosts. Fellows who were with me in that same shell crater where they were having this meeting and where he asked me that question, they reported that I said, "I'll try."
Wow.
And try he did.
He did.
He did.
And when he returned home and received that Medal of Honor, Woody tried and succeeded, I think it's fair to say, to remember those who didn't come home. And he would always say, "I'm wearing this medal, not for me, but for those who made it possible for me to come home." So we remember them.
He'd served for 30 years helping veterans in so many different ways. Then when he was a young 85-year-old, he had talked so much about Gold Star families that he started the Woody Williams Foundation at 85 to not just honor but support Gold Star families around the country.
To make sure they had a place to go.
Yeah.
Let's watch.
Folks saw this monument, and you saw other folks get involved, and you saw them start to pop up across the country. About every 10 to 12 days, we're getting a call and we're onboarding a new local committee somewhere in the United States that want to participate in this program.
For the community at large, right, to show up and you're seeing that monument and you're saying, yes, there are families of the fallen out there.
Wow, what was it like? How powerful was that?
The one that really hit the most for me was the one we saw in Knoxville, Tennessee, at their Veterans Cemetery. It had the monument and all the headstones behind it, and it just hit.
The one that grabbed me was the one outside Louisville. It was Chad Graham, Woody's grandson, was there. A woman walked up and kind of teared and looked at the monument and touched it. Chad went over to her, and she had lost her husband in Afghanistan and didn't understand what Gold Star families were. And as Woody's grandson, Chad goes over to her, starts talking to her, puts his arm on her shoulder. Next thing you know, he has another convert. He has another Gold Star mother, or that he's brought into the fold, that he's going to help and support.
And those Gold Star families go on to do so much in our communities to help other Gold Star families and other veterans in ways that sometimes are so simple, but are so incredibly meaningful.
Indeed. As storytellers, we know that it was probably very difficult to put all of Woody's life into 1 hour, but there it is, and we can't wait to watch it, and we invite you to watch it as well. Janet, Randy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Our pleasure.
Appreciate it. The documentary is called Woody Williams, An Extraordinary Life of Service. You can watch it on Veterans Day, November 11th, 8 p.m. on WVPB. And once again, thanks to West Virginia Public Broadcasting. We really look forward to watching that documentary.
All right, so one of the things you heard us talk about and one of the things you'll learn more about in the documentary are these beautiful monuments that are in every state in our nation and in some American territories. But one of these monuments has a really incredible story. It was Woody's last wish to have a Gold Star family monument across from the Memorial Arch in Huntington, and that was dedicated just a few weeks ago. It coincided with what would have been the 100th birthday of the West Virginia native, the Medal of Honor recipient who was pushing for the monument the very day he was honoring veterans at a Memorial Day event. He sat there and he sketched it out right in that moment and told his friends, and they made sure it came to fruition. Those who were in attendance that day heard several stories about a man who dedicated his life to service.
I knew Woody and a lot of the society members, and we've lost a lot of them now, which represents all those who have fought in every war America has had. And when you see somebody wearing that blue ribbon, you know, they deserve your respect, your dignity, and your conversation. And Woody was one of those who was very engaging, and he represented so many.
Such a special project, Woody would have been thrilled to know it came to fruition.
Just before that monument was unveiled, a large crowd gathered to pay tribute and preserve the legacy of Woody Williams. Dozens of guests showed up at the West Virginia Cultural Center at the Capitol Complex for the inaugural Woody Williams Foundation Legacy of Service celebration. The event showcased Woody's commitment to our military Gold Star families and supporters, and I had the pleasure of emceeing that event. Guests heard from 3 distinguished Medal of Honor recipients, and they even got a sneak peek of the new Herschel Woody Williams special exhibit.
The Gold Star families that Woody worked so tirelessly with and so tirelessly to honor give back so much to the community themselves. And the tradition of planting apple orchards to help provide for the community for decades to come continues this year. We were there as student organizations from Wyoming East High School came together at Twin Falls State Park to honor Gold Star families. They helped plant 55 trees representing members of the U.S. Armed Services from each county who have lost their life since 9/11, fighting for our freedom. All of the Gold Star mothers say this is a project that will serve the community for decades to come. Coming up, we're not done with our Gold Star families just yet as they continue to honor their fallen sons and daughters.
How we honor them on Veterans Day, next on Veterans Voices. Welcome back to Veterans Voices. Well, veterans deserve to be recognized every day, not just on Veterans Day, but for some, they go unrecognized in their day-to-day lives.
As Marvin Bartlett reports, there's one group that makes sure that when a veteran dies, he or she receives a proper send-off.
When you see a group of motorcyclists surround a funeral home, there's a good chance flags will soon be flying. And everyone passing by will know we've lost another veteran.
The flags flying make the biggest difference to the families and the people that come to these funerals, because it shows them that this guy was a hero or woman. They gave their time, they stood for us, now we're standing for them.
The flag bearers are members of the Patriot Guard Riders, a group founded in Kansas in 2005. It started as an effort to shield funeral goers from hateful messages displayed by members of Westboro Baptist Church, who preached that soldiers were dying because America is a sinful nation. Soon the mission spread across the country as a way to show respect to any veteran or first responder. It's believed there are more than 200,000 Patriot Guard riders who attend funerals year-round in all kinds of weather.
I've done well, I don't know the exact number, but I've done way over 1,000. And it's just an honor to be here for the families and stuff.
On this day, the riders stood outside the funeral of James Johnson in Owensville, whose military career was extraordinary. He served in the Army, then the Marines, and ended up as a Navy SEAL. His family says he would have loved this show of support.
He'd be smiling. He'd be smiling, duck his head. He'd be proud. He'd be really happy. He wouldn't say much, but he'd be proud.
Anyone can be a member of the Patriot Guard Riders. You don't have to be a motorcyclist or even a veteran. The only requirement is patriotism.
I found I had the time and I wanted to give back.
The volunteers also stand guard at gravesides if the family requests it, making sure military service is recognized at every step on the day of a funeral. The riders also often serve as pallbearers for veterans who have no family left. They're always looking for more volunteers.
If they got any heart at all and they come to a mission and do one or two of us, they're hooked. Very, very few that ever comes and helps us once or twice don't keep coming back.
A military funeral often comes with the sound of gunfire and taps. And thanks to this group, there's another sound of respect: the roar of motorcycles. In Bath County, Kentucky, Marvin Bartlett for Veterans Voices.
To volunteer as a rider or request their presence at a funeral, simply go to patriotguard.org.
It's important for us to say thank you to veterans for their service, and on Veterans Day, you say Happy Veterans Day, and maybe say it in person or do it on social media.
But how do you really honor a veteran who died fighting for our freedom? Well, you simply reach out to their Gold Star family.
A country boy.
Joey Allen Ashley.
Good old country boy.
Died for us.
Because that's all he was.
And his mom.
And honest.
Never forgets.
Had a smile on his face and his pretty blue eyes. Everybody said he could light up a room just with his smile.
But that smile of Navy machinist First Mate Joey Ashley, who was killed in a training accident 18 years ago, will fade away unless we're constantly reminded of his service.
He's a veteran. He died for our country, and he didn't come home.
So on this Veterans Day, Vicki Maddox, a Gold Star mom, and her husband Andy are here to remind us.
I respect them all, because they're special.
This holiday is not just for our living service members, but also those veterans who gave their lives for our country.
We need to respect them and keep them in memory and honor them.
Not just now, but for generations to come by telling their stories, like Joey's final moments and the compassion of one of his Navy crewmates.
One of them crawled on his hands and knees and carried my son's body to the mess deck and put his headphones on and listened to Hank Williams Jr. on his CDs and held his hand the whole time. And it's an honor to know that.
And while we generally pay tribute to our fallen on Memorial Day,
he was a special kid.
On Veterans Day, for Vicki and other Gold Star families, remembrance is the highest form of honor.
We're grieving, but we're still honoring our children. And people thank me, and I go, don't thank me. Call my son's name.
Vicki Maddox and her husband Andy plan to spend Veterans Day at a parade while honoring their son Joey.
We want to tell you about another veteran from our region, a very special one, a Medal of Honor recipient from Eastern Kentucky. His name is Ernie West. A new emergency exit road was just dedicated and named for the private first class. Of course, he is from Eastern Kentucky, and that new road is in West Virginia at the VA clinic named in Woody Williams' honor. West was a Medal of Honor recipient from the Korean War. He was drafted into the U.S. Army, and he was awarded the medal after he retrieved his wounded platoon leader under fire and killed 6 enemy soldiers in close combat, despite losing his eye. After the war, he returned to his job with the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. He was a humble man who loved to fish. He died May 1st of 2021. Well, the year 2023 marked a milestone when it comes to a very special parade. You are looking at the 155th Ironton Lawrence County Memorial Day Parade. The community is so incredibly proud of this tradition. It's the longest continually running parade on Memorial Day throughout the entire United States. Countless groups work together to make sure that we have the opportunity to honor the sacrifices made for our freedom and teach the younger generations as well.
And here's another thing that you and your family would enjoy, just showing up and honoring these veterans as it's passing by. After 13 years of traveling around the Mountain State, the West Virginia Vietnam Memorial Wall has a permanent place to call home. The iconic memorial wall will be on display in the Nitro War Museum, paying respects to those who served and lost their lives in combat. The wall is on display inside the Nitro War Museum. Admission is free, but donations are always welcome. Up next on Veterans Voices, honoring our prisoners of war with a new exhibit. Welcome back to Veterans Voices. We can always say thank you to a veteran, but we can show our gratitude even without saying a word.
That's right. Look at what they're doing in Weirton and at all 26 DMVs across the state of West Virginia. Purple Heart parking spaces made especially for combat wounded veterans. The Purple Heart parking project was started by VFW Post 4442 in Wheeling. Poppies are also a symbol of paying our respects. For more than 100 years, the red poppy has been a symbol of lives lost to war. It's a tradition that started back during World War I, and now a Bourbon County couple is working to keep the tradition alive.
The owners of Middle Springs Farm just opened its newest attraction, a poppy field, during the Memorial Day holiday. It's a beautiful and meaningful setting.
We were at least hoping that they would be blooming around Memorial Day, and given the symbolism of the poppy for memorializing fallen veterans, we thought this could be a really special event.
And they're hoping to make this an annual event. This year marks 50 years since Americans held captive during the Vietnam War were released.
Zara Barker takes us to an art exhibit honoring prisoners of war.
When you open the door to this exhibit, you're greeted by an image of some of the 591 prisoners of war leaving Vietnam, finally on their way home to their families after being in captivity for up to 8 years.
They were and still are the longest held group of POWs in our nation's history.
The exhibit, Open Doors, Vietnam POWs, 50 Years of Freedom, celebrates the lives of 30 former Vietnam prisoners of war.
We tried to capture them, their humanity, their personalities, and their life perspective.
It publicly celebrates these men, their families, their kids. It honors the sacrifices that they made, not by choice, but by force.
Captain Jack Ench is one of the 30 veterans that Jamie Howren photographed and Taylor Keelan profiled.
Very flattered and very honored to be in this group with a bunch of these other real heroes. I don't consider myself a hero, but I served with a lot of heroes.
Captain Ench was shot down in Vietnam and held captive for 7 months. Still, he calls himself lucky.
I went through my own little crucible of hell. There the first few days I was captured, I came back a little short-handed, as you see. They kept the thumb. It was injured in the explosion of the missile, and then they used that against me for 3.5, 4 days. Would not give me medical attention until I finally started answering questions.
This exhibit from this best friend duo was first displayed in 2002 at this same location. Then it traveled to 21 other venues, and for the first time in 20 years, it's back in Coronado.
When we were able to bring it back here, and I walked in and saw them being unpacked out of the boxes, I cried.
The moving photos, stories of survival, and relics from captivity.
These are original pieces that hung in the cell, but these are the rules in Vietnamese and in English of what they had to follow as POWs.
Now on display for the public for the first time in 15 years.
I just hope that this exhibit shows the value in our military and reminds people of the sacrifice that our military makes to protect our homeland.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Zara Barker.
Up next, vanishing voices. We're losing more of our World War II heroes at a faster rate, and their stories are leaving with them.
Some final words of wisdom and hope from one of them next on Veterans Voices.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices. Sadly, more and more of our World War II veterans are passing away, and their stories are vanishing with them.
And when you think of we started the war with 16 million of them fighting, and now today there are only 120,000 of them left living with us.
One of them grew up in West Virginia during the Depression.
And I got the opportunity to actually get to know him and hear his concerns and yet hopes for the future of our country.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin.
December 7th, 1941.
Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air.
A date which will live in infamy.
Well, I was there.
Bob Batterson was right in the middle of where World War II started, stationed at Pearl Harbor.
We were sound asleep. I was sound asleep.
The Mason, West Virginia native was jolted awake that morning to a world that changed right before his eyes.
So we knew we were at war.
Bob witnessed Japanese bombers dropping fury on our helpless U.S. fleet off the coast of Hawaii.
Majority of them never knew what happened. When that bomb exploded and killed practically all hands, they just died like that.
2,390 Americans were killed, and that's when Bob stepped up and joined the fight.
There's no doubt about what was expected of us and what we were expected to do.
Bob earned his naval aviator wings, and by 1944, the Mountaineer combat pilot was steering his F-6F Hellcat above the coast of Japan, ready to attack, when word came that the Japanese surrendered. After the war, Bob came home, completed a long tour of duty in the Navy, and found his voice, vowing to keep his beloved country from getting attacked again.
This is a good way for us to make sure that we remember those guys, that we don't forget they died for us, and we've got to protect our country as best we can.
Bob did just that. He continued his life of service by volunteering for 3 decades aboard the USS Lexington Museum. He gave tours describing the attack on Pearl Harbor and teaching lessons he had hoped that we learn from that fateful day. But then,
I can see how they'd forgotten.
9/11 caught us off guard again. We came together for a short time, but are now divided. And in his final days, Bob's hope was that we all get involved, stay alert, and find a way to reunite.
If more and more Americans would do it, we'd have a stronger nation. We'd have a future that's assured.
A future and freedom he and 70 million other American veterans fought for 8 decades ago. Well, Bob Batterson died in South Texas in August of this year. He was 102 years old.
An incredible relationship that you guys had, for sure.
We did.
Next, a family now has a cherished piece of family history that all but vanished during World War II.
We're talking about the dog tags of Sergeant Jackson McGill. They were lost in France 80 years ago, well, now they're finally in the hands of his family. Michael Van Schook reports.
It can be a somber moment hearing this memorial tune fill the air.
Present, R.
But there's also a great sense of pride.
Ready, A, fire.
As each salute bursts overhead, remembering Sergeant Jackson McGill as one little piece of his story makes its way back to where it belongs.
It's my great, great honor to present you with your dad's dog tag.
Nearly 8 decades after the World War II vet's B-17 crashed over France, his family, like grandson Matthew McGill, are baffled that little piece of copper and nickel is still around.
We started wondering, it was like, what? How in the world did they find this little thing?
A French gardener gave it to Valerie Prihoda in 2021 while with her American Legion team in France.
And I looked at it and went, oh my God, this is an American dog tag. Where did you find it? And he said he had found it in his garden some 30 years ago.
Prihoda says returning it to family became an immediate priority.
The minute that he gave me that dog tag, I just started shaking because I realized, because I'm a veteran myself, I have my dog tag. I knew how important that would be to a family.
And his children and grandchildren who gathered couldn't be more thankful.
To think that they knew it was special to somebody and wanted to make sure that a family member got it.
And all these years since McGill passed, it's almost like a part of him is still here.
I started to think about, the people we've lost that would have liked to have been here, and we're just so proud of him. We're proud of everything that he did.
McGill's oldest child, Karen, is humbled to now hold this piece of her father's life in her hand.
I think it's wonderful, but I don't get to hold on to it very long.
She's ready to pass her father's legacy onward, though, to her nephew, Matthew.
I have a museum at home that I put his memorabilia in, and to have the dog tag means a lot. It's like the thing you want in your little museum to remember your grandpa by.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Michael Van Scoik.
And now to a reunion, 50 years in the making.
It happened at the Air Force Academy in Colorado. A Vietnam veteran had a final wish granted.
It was his chance to see his airplane that safely got him through the war.
We're pretty tight group.
It all came together in a hurry. Fellow veterans and friends caravanning to Colorado Springs, Thompson Valley EMS freeing up a transport van, the Air Force Academy rallying their airmen.
Hi, sir. Fellow B-52 pilot.
Hey, nice to meet you.
All to help check off the most important item on Kenneth Curry's bucket list.
How's it feel?
Seeing his old airplane.
Kind of weird. Kind of strange, huh? Yeah.
Captain Curry, as he was known a half-century ago in Vietnam, just entered palliative care a week ago.
Good part of your life, huh?
Yep.
Hard to say how many or few days he has left in front of him.
In the last 6 months, he has declined very, very quickly.
But he had one last wish before he dies, seeing in person one last time a B-52.
That's pretty good.
Exactly.
It's the bomber he flew during 157 missions over Vietnam, including one that nearly killed him 51 years ago.
Doing okay?
He was in the commander's seat over North Vietnam when a surface-to-air missile exploded near the left wing, taking out 2 of the 8 engines on board and riddling the aircraft with shrapnel.
And he managed to get it back to Da Nang, and they were hit so badly that the inside of the aircraft was filling with fuel.
How many missions? 157? Are you kidding me?
He survived that night and 3 full tours in Vietnam, but Agent Orange-related cancer and dementia are the enemy now.
So thank you. That's the best thing I can say. Thank you for loving us.
Friends knew time was running out to reunite Captain Curry with the aircraft he loved, so they worked the phones trying to locate a B-52.
God bless you.
Only to realize not only is there one on permanent display at the Air Force Academy, but it turns out Captain Curry actually flew this very airplane.
In memory, we wanted him to be able to remember this trip.
2 larger-than-life war heroes, one made of metal, one with nerves of steel, reunited one last time.
Kind of heard about this opportunity. It's like, yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, we got to do
Give Ken
this.
that trip, because we don't know how much longer they'll be.
Bucket list wish granted, thanks to a group of friends who refused to let a dying wish die.
He's just a true friend, and I just want him to be happy in whatever days he has left with us. And we did that today.
What a great reunion. We should also note that Captain Curry received several medals for his work behind the controls of that B-52.
And one of them included the Distinguished Flying Cross, one of the highest honors given out by the Air Force. Veterans Voices continues next. Here on Veterans Voices, we're proudly showing your veterans photos. Keep them coming. Go to WOWKTV.com, type Veterans Voices in the search bar, and then we will honor your veteran on Veterans Voices.
Welcome back. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us for our Veterans Voices special. We would especially like to thank all of our veterans, including you, Pat, for your service in our nation's Army. Lieutenant Colonel Pat Simon.
Thank you, Amanda. It's an honor. I'd do it all over again, as a matter of fact. And we'd also like to thank the families of our veterans.